Thank you for joining us today. My name is Yannick Goryeb, and I'm the Health Information Specialist with Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada. Today we have Karine Chalifour, Program Director with Young Adult Cancer Canada, also known as YACC. Karine is a graduate of the University du Québec à Montréal in social work and psychology. After working in a hospital setting for years, she had the opportunity to co-facilitate a young adult support group. It became clear that this was what she wanted to do. In 2007, she started volunteering for YACC as a facilitator at retreats and conferences before moving to St. John's, Newfoundland and becoming a full-time employee. She is now the program director and is in charge of planning and delivering events, and she loves every minute of it. Today, Karine's presentation is entitled Young Adults with Cancer. I welcome you, Karine, and I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Jenny. Well, thank you everyone for being here. I apologize for my voice. I'm actually just back yesterday from a retreat we just offered to young adults, so a little bit, my voice got worn out a little bit, but I'll do my best not to lose it during this presentation. So yes, it's interesting and great to know who's online. So hopefully for those of you who don't know as much about YACC or about the issues young adults face, I'll be able to give you information that is going to be helpful. For those of you who are a bit more aware, that's fabulous. And hopefully I'll bring you maybe additional information that can help you in your practice. So I'm going to start actually by giving a bit of information around the situation of young adults in Canada and a little bit more info on the issues, the different issues they face. And the second part of my presentation is going to focus a little bit more on the programs and services that YACC offers, and hopefully sometime at the end for any questions. So let's get going. Oh, excuse me about that. Okay, so young adults with cancer, so it's rare. 10% of cases that we see, 10% of cases in pediatric oncology and 10% as well in adult oncology. So this means really that young adults are about 10% of everybody's work. When we're talking, I'm sorry, about young adults, we're talking about people aged 15 to 39, and this is the age population YACC works with. So when we say 10% of everybody's work, that is kind of why we've been talking about young adults as the forgotten generation. They're not necessarily the majority of patients pediatric oncologists or adult oncologists are going to get to see. So the result of that has brought different things. Some of them we see more frequently. Delays in diagnosis is one of them for sure. So young adults, because they're young, because they're not the biggest group seen, very often are going to be diagnosed late because either they will themselves push until they go to the doctor thinking, I'm okay, it must be nothing, or sometimes going to family doctors, been told, you're young, I'm sure you're fine, it's probably work, school, you're tired, and then things get pushed. So that's certainly an issue we see in many people we meet. Still to this day, there's low participation rates in clinical trials. So it's a little bit better than it used to be, but still to this day, there are very little actually clinical trials built for this age group. So young adults don't get to participate as much. Lack of age-appropriate care. So I think that is also something that is improving. And thanks to people, I guess, like you, who are taking the time to attend a session like this one today, I think care and the way people work with this population is improving. But still, when we look at what's offered across the country, it is still very adapted to either children or older adults, not specifically for the young adult population. And there is a limited social support during treatment. So we see that all the time. We hear it as well from our participants. There's not a lot of support groups. In Canada,
Oops, Karine, I'll just have to stop you for a second. I can't hear you all of a sudden. If the attendees online can't hear Karine,
has been identified as a priority by the Canadian Partnership Against Cancer. So that has helped significantly move certain issues forward. So the situation itself, even though it is rare, young adults are out there, and there are 7,000 diagnosed every year in Canada. And this incidence of diagnosis has been increasing steadily in the last 25 years. So there are more and more. So when we look at 7,000, really, it is, I think, over 5 to 6 times more than children. So there's still a big number in comparison, but with little adapted care to this day. The most common cancer we see in young adults, breast, testicular, lymphomas, and melanoma. But there are tons of other cancers, and when we speak of brain tumors and brain cancers, it is also a type of cancer that we actually see regularly in our group of people. And to this day, I would say, I looked briefly in our stats, and I think we actually connected and had brain cancer survivors come to our event, about 25 to 30 of them. Just this past retreat, we had 2 or 3 of them out of 19. So the brain cancer young adult survivors are definitely a part of our community. So even though the number is somewhat small compared to older adults diagnosed with cancer, the impact is still very important. So one thing, young adults represent about 10% of incidence. So about 10% of the people diagnosed with cancer are young adults. Even though it's only 10%, they do represent 30% of potential years of life loss. Here, for those of you who are not familiar with the term, potential years of life loss is not necessarily related to death, but more in very broad term, more in the impact it has on society. So when we think of this population, we're thinking of people who technically would be going to school, starting a career, starting to really contribute financially to our society, having children, starting a family, buying a house, and all of that gets completely stopped, or at least very much delayed. And that has actually a significant impact on those years that would be the years where this population would really grow and boom in their lives and in society, and it actually doesn't happen. As well, 83% of young adults survive and live decades after their diagnosis. So that also means a long-term impact on our healthcare services. What makes it different? So some of you have said that you were familiar with young adults and their challenges. If we look at things, when we think of people aged between 15 and 39, especially in the younger end of our spectrum, but really we see it all the way through 39, it is a time where at this age you're trying to establish your independence from your parents. And that is a big thing, because very often when diagnosis comes, either the young adult had just moved out or just gotten into their first apartment, and very often they're finding themselves having to move back with their parents and becoming dependent again, which is really difficult. They're often in a time in their lives or they're about to complete education, start a new job, which is also a big time in their lives. Limited access to healthcare benefits. So very often we're talking about a population that has not been working long enough in a stable job to actually have those benefits that many of us older in our lives and we didn't have to deal with cancer are having. So they're kind of finding themselves in a situation where either they lose their job, or when they actually have to stop working, they do not have insurance or coverage to help them cover some of the costs that comes with cancer. And I think when we're thinking of brain cancer patients, I know we have a few in our community that are in a situation where they actually have to pay for some medication, and the financial struggles are significant. So lack of financial stability, and I think I just spoke of that. They're often as well in an age and a time in their lives where they're trying to find a partner, relatively new to a relationship as well. Some people had just gotten married, or just kind of were starting this relationship, or were just new parents. Becoming a parent and having your first child. So this is the population we're talking about. So this is a lot of the differences that we would see in young adults, different than from someone who's maybe 65 or 70 years old dealing with cancer. So when we say cancer is different, I don't have any young adults with me today. Sometimes I do, but I'll just share with you a few short stories that I think illustrate really clearly the differences. So the beautiful girl you're seeing right now is Jamie. Jamie was diagnosed with breast cancer when she was 28, and she came to a retreat with us. But before she came, it took a lot of persuasion from her nurses. So she had one nurse, and that's a story she told us and shared with us, and she's okay with us sharing it around. So Jamie keeps saying her nurse literally every time she would go to the hospital would ask her, so did you connect? Did you check this website? Did you go on YACC's website? I think you should go to their retreat. And Jamie was just kind of, oh my God, stop harassing me with this. I don't feel like it. And after her persistent nurse, with a lot of humor and tact, repeated every time she would see Jamie, Jamie eventually said, if I go, are you going to stop just pushing on me? And the nurse said, yes, I promise. And Jamie came with her partner at the time. They were now married. They came to a retreat in 2008 and have been connected since then. And this has been a blessing for us and for our community, but also for Jamie, who since then has gone through so much. So she went through a reoccurrence. So right now she is in treatment again for breast cancer. And she went through a lot of fertility issues, which also we'll see is a big thing. So for her, she wasn't able to have children. So through our connection with Jamie over the past, well, six years, is it? My God, yes. We kind of were able to support her and help her, and they actually last year were able to have a baby through surrogacy. So one of their close friends actually carried Jamie and JP's baby. So these are the kind of stories we hear all the time, and Jamie is certainly a big part of our community now and still to this day. So there were some research done. If we look quickly at some of the issues and some of what it means, I guess, to get cancer as a young adult, we see that there is definitely a premature confrontation with death or dying. So we just had a retreat with, I would say, I think we had 8 participants who were diagnosed between 15 and 18. They were now 19 years old, 20 years old, 21 years old, and at that young age, they were definitely confronted with death, thinking, I don't know if I'm actually going to live to do all those dreams and those things I wanted to do. So this is a big thing for this population. Like I was saying earlier, forces dependence create changes in physical appearance. So it does for all patients. You could argue, well, anyone at any time will have changes, but losing your hair when you're 20 and in school or surrounded with friends can have a different impact for sure. There's definitely a disruption of social development. So at that age, you're going out, you're meeting people, you're very active, and having cancer, and very often being the only person with cancer in your age group will change significantly how your social network grows and develops. Disruption in sexual development as well. Of course, it is an age where you're kind of discovering sexuality and yourself, and that definitely has impact. And it's not something that I think younger adults are comfortable talking about. Potential loss of fertility. So I just talked about Jamie's story, which is a story we hear at every event we do. Complicates relationship. When do you disclose you had cancer, especially for people not in a stable relationship when diagnosed? Very often young adults will say, I don't know when to say, hey, by the way, I had cancer. This is not something obvious for people to deal with. Disruption of school, work, career, most definitely. We had at the retreat I just had the last few days, people were really feeling hard how their life was put on hold. And for some people, they didn't know if their life was actually going to get back to where they wish it would go. They kind of had to deal with this new normal, which is difficult when you had so many dreams. And definitely fear of uncertain health that threatens the future. So we had a team this past retreat, and a team that actually comes back at every single retreat we do, which is around fear of recurrence. And when we talk about that with young adults, there's certainly a fear of the cancer coming back. but also it's very challenging for them to learn to trust their bodies again, because for many people, they were in really good shape. They were in good health, kind of in that age where it's like, I feel like I'm in the best shape of my life, and then they get cancer. And so to kind of try and make sense of this and trust your body after is really difficult. So what does it mean when we know all of those things and we think of this wonderful population with different needs? When we talk about age-appropriate care, what are we saying here exactly? Well, I think on our end and in the healthcare system in general, we need to be flexible, which I know is not something that is always easy to do in such a busy world. I know a lot of people, and most of you I'm sure are working in the healthcare system, are probably overworked most times, but flexibility is something that makes a huge difference with this age group. What you're doing today, so as healthcare professional, but I would say anyone else who's attending the webinar today, being more knowledgeable of the unique issues of young adults makes a significant difference, I think, on how we work with them and the kind of services we provide them. If we understand a little bit better where they're coming from, I think we're better able to offer them services and work with them in a way that, that empowers them. Socializes the young adult to the medical system by giving them relevant information. I think it's important for anyone working in the healthcare system and working with young adults to remember that for a lot of them, they have never been in touch with the healthcare system before. It's not like they're used to going to the hospital and used to understanding the rules and how it works. They just don't know. They've never been to a hospital for many of them before. Some people will say, well, when I got diagnosed was the first time I was hospitalized in my life. And so I think that's important information for us to know, to say, okay, sometimes they just don't understand. And if we can provide them with information on how it works, why it works the way it works, it can really help having them collaborate and work with the healthcare system instead of being kind of rebel and saying, I'm not going to do this. Because I think it's a sense of, for them to try and find control, where there's a huge feeling of loss of control. When cancer happens, everything is kind of ripped off from them. So if we give them information and tools that can help them take control over certain things, I do think it makes a big difference. Have a open communication style as well. So I think for any age, I think it makes a difference, but definitely with young adults, if they feel like, excuse me, they're being talked with, they're talking with their nurse, their doctor, their social worker instead of at, it makes a difference. I think they're more receptive when they feel that they're actually part of the conversation. Sharing decision-making process, so that kind of comes with that. And open to using technology. And like I always say, I know that for working in a hospital setting for 8 years, I couldn't use Facebook and things like that on my computer at the hospital because of network kind of blockage. But using technology really works well. And when it's possible, texting and emailing and connecting with young adults in that way, they respond really well to that. And they're, for many of them, that's the world they were born in. If you're 18 or 19 or 20, Facebook and computers and iPads and all those things, that's what they're used to. So I think for us to get kind of more comfortable with it, and maybe the healthcare system finding ways to incorporate some of that in the workplace would make a difference. So we try in the healthcare system, I guess in general, to limit the cancer disruption and maximize the sense of normalcy. So everything feels different. And there's a lot of impact. People will lose friends. A lot of young adults will say, I lost so many friends because they don't understand what I'm going through. They don't know, and they kind of feel like the minute I'm done treatment and my hair growing back, they're feeling like everything is okay and I must be back on track now and I should stop talking about cancer. So for us within the aged care system, if we can try and maintain as much as possible a sense of normalcy for them, that helps a whole lot. I think partly to achieve that, it's important for us to know how peer relationships are important to young adults. Isolation is probably one of the #1 issues. Brad Zebrack had done a research, and isolation comes on the top. And like I said, I just had a retreat now, and when we did our opening circle, the feeling of loneliness and isolation was mentioned, I would say, by almost every single participant. That doesn't mean they didn't have support around them. They had amazing family amazing friends for most of them. But ultimately, what they want more than anything is to be able to connect with their peers. And that's what one of the research Brad Zebrak did showed. It's not that family is not important or friends are not important. On the contrary, they're essential to the health, to the healing of those young adults. But ultimately, they want to connect with their peers. They want to connect with other young adults who've had cancer. And so that's kind of where we try and come in at YACC. So peer relationships, when you're a young adult, this is when a lot of things happen. This is how you learn a lot of skills and a lot of things. So when you have peer support, when you have people you feel connected with and understood by, you have validation and acceptance. It reduces the sense of isolation, of course. It helps to have a positive adjustment to illness, actually. Get opportunities to engage in social activities, master age-appropriate skills. So if you're surrounded by peers you're feeling comfortable with, this is going to help in all those things. And ability to reintegrate into a typical network in a typical environment, in typical social life. So being connected with peers and peers who really understand actually can have significant positive impact on the young adult's reality. So when we were saying cancer is different and when we were saying peer is important, those two awesome guys, Colin, who's on the left, and Brandon, who's on the right, they're two brain tumor, germinoma, brain cancer survivors. They came to a retreat in 2010, I think, was their retreat. And I put them together in the room because we pair young adults based on diagnosis and age. And I'm like, oh, great, you know, we have two germinoma cancer survivors to this retreat. Let's put them together in a room. And that changed these guys' lives. It was the first time when they came to that retreat that they were meeting another young person with the same diagnosis they had as young men. And so for them, now they're still connected. One of them lives in Ottawa and the other one is in Calgary. And they still talk weekly. And they really call each other brother from another mother. So they really got close. And for them, it was transformative to be able to connect not only with another young adult with cancer, but with another young adult with the same cancer. And so those two guys stayed involved and gave back to YACC in a significant way. They were both local life leaders, one of our activities I'll speak to briefly. And they've helped, we're peer supporters at retreats we've done, and they've really had a positive impact on our community and our friends. And I think when I speak with them, they're lifelong friends. For them, they're extremely grateful to have been connected, and it changed their lives in many ways. So I think this just speaks of the importance of peer support and how important it is to facilitate those connections. So even though we know that, there was a big research done in the U.S., the HOPE study, with 523 people. And even looking at this study and knowing how important peer support is, 43.1% of adolescent and young adult, that's the AYA, that's what it stands for, who wanted to meet another survivor with cancer, report having not met this need. So they didn't meet one. They wanted to, but 43% said, no, I didn't meet anyone, my age group. And 75% of adolescent and young adult in that study report needing but not having peer support groups. So I think there is much room for improvement, and by being more aware of things and hopefully being more aware of how YACC can help, because we know that when we say YACC's got your back, we tell that to young adults all the time, but I kind of want to return this to all the health professionals, family members, supporters of young adults to say we also have your back. And we know that you cannot achieve and do everything within the healthcare system or within your own family. So that's why we're here, and we want to help kind of get those connections together. That's what we're all about. So we want to empower young adults who are dealing with cancer to live and love life. And we do this a lot by building a community. This is, I think, our main purpose, is to have a community that can provide, yes, information for sure, but support, skills, opportunities. We are growing our community regularly, and we want to work on eliminating isolation altogether. No young adult should have to deal with cancer alone. So now I'm just going to spend a few minutes talking about the services YACC has, and then have time for some questions. So the first thing, we have kind of a continuum of services, and I would say the way we look at it sometimes is to say, okay, we have services that I think are very low involvement, easy to get to access and easy to use, and then we have services that are a bit more involved and that demand a bit more effort on our young adults. So the first one, which is I think for anyone very easy to access, is our website. So it's support 24/7 wherever you are, wherever you live, and wherever you are emotionally as well. And so we have our website with stories. So we have I think over 150 profiles. So stories of young adults with different types of cancer, different ages, where people can go and read them. And then once they read them, they can actually connect with us. And I get connections like that regularly of people saying, I just read this story and this is it, this is me. Could I talk to that person? And then we connect young adults together that way from across the country. So the website, I always say to health professionals, if you have 30 seconds with a young adult, and you can think of just saying, check this website out, that would be awesome, because I think it's an easy entering place for anyone, and then we'll take care of people. We're also, for any health professionals out there, and anyone really who's listening, we're going to have in the next week or so, we're going to post this new referral sheet on our website. So for any professionals or anyone who knows a young adult who could use our services, you can actually refer them to us. So send me a form with the basic information on that individual, and we will connect, because we know as well that telling someone to go and email someone or go check that website, chances are the young adult is going to go back home and maybe forget about it or not necessarily go. So that's why we kind of created this referral sheet, so that people can be referred to us and you can be guaranteed we will connect and reach out and hopefully create those connections with them. The other web resource we have is Goaltender, and it is a private site where people can enter their medical information, their appointments, to have reminders sent via email, and we're actually hoping to revamp our Goaltender in the next year, but right now it is available to anyone who wants to connect and kind of keep track of their medical information and where they are right now. The other program we have that is also easy to access started actually last year, last November. For the first time, we had what we call the Big Cancer Hookup. So we had this event in Toronto, but it was national, and it's really to have an online program. So we had in November we had a panel with 3 young adult cancer survivors, and we talked with them basically for an hour or so about issues they deal with, that they face, that we know most people deal and face, like uncertainty and fertility and fear and guilt and all those emotions. So we had a long chat with people. This last hookup is actually available on YouTube for anyone to watch, and we are planning to do one again this year. And what was really cool about this event is that it was filmed live in Toronto, but anyone across the country could actually log in and watch the panel and ask questions through Facebook and other networks, so to be interactive. And we had 7 groups across the country in 7 different cities who got together and watched the panel together and had a discussion and pizza and popcorn and stuff together, and that really helped connect a lot of people. So we're going to repeat this this event once again this year, and I think it's working really well. Local Life, so I mentioned briefly Brendan and Colin, who are our Local Life leader. So this is a different program that right now is offered in 5 cities in the country, so Calgary, Edmonton, Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver, who was just added, so it's our new city in Vancouver. And as important as we know, one-on-one sessions are important, we also know that young adults want to connect, and sometimes connecting can just mean being together and having fun and not necessarily feeling obligated to talk about cancer. So this is kind of what Local Life is all about. It is led by a pair of survivors that we trained. So we have 10 people trained that lead those events and organize just gatherings. So they can go bowling, they can go to a comedy night. In Toronto a few weeks ago, they went to an art this art place where they actually were able to paint together and have a lot of fun. So karaoke night, name it, they do it. They have 6 events every year, and it is a very successful event. So I think when you meet a young adult who is in one of those cities, and we're always looking to expand, so one city at a time, when you meet someone, I think it might be a really nice way to get connected to the community, because it's not too threatening or involved. Someone could easily say, I'm going to go out tonight and I'm going to see if I like it. And it's a few hours, so if I don't, I won't go back. But it's certainly, we haven't met someone who said I hated it. So I guess it's working out. And the fact that it's led by peers, so that it's led by survivors, is also wonderful and I think very successful. Retreat yourself. So this is the program I'm just coming back from. This is our oldest program at YACC. It is for, and all our programs, by the way, everything I'm going to talk about is for anyone. The face-to-face programs are for anyone diagnosed between 15 and 39 and aged between 18 and 39. You just have to be 18 to attend our events. And it is for survivors, but also and patients, anyone in diagnosed with cancer, wherever they are in their journey. And it is also for supporters. So any young adults can bring along one supporter with them, as long as that supporter is a young adult as well, so 18 to 39, which I think makes a big difference, because the supporters in our community, as we saw this past retreat and as we see all the time, also have different needs, and they may be friends, siblings, cousins, husbands, or wives, and they are young and they are in that same place in their lives dealing with someone they love who is sick. And so we do provide support for supporters as well. So the retreat is, I would say in a couple of words, it's all about connections, it's all about stories, and it's all about support. So we have 24 to 26 people each retreat. We also have 4 health professionals facilitating those events, social workers, psychologists, nurses that come, and we have 4 peer supporters. So those are young adults, survivors or supporters who have been to a retreat before, and they come back and they co-facilitate the small group sessions and the activities we do. So it is a very successful program that allows to go deep, and I think that allows connections that last literally for a lifetime. And we had a research actually done, a 3-year research, and this research actually proved that the retreat increased hope, feelings of quality of life, and an enhanced sense of connection to a community, and that in the long run. So it's not just something that they feel just leaving the retreat, it's something that they actually feel long term. So that is significant for us. And this year we have 3 retreats. So we had this one, the picture you're seeing is the beautiful people we met in Ontario in April. I just did one in BC just now, and we have a 3rd retreat coming up in November. The registration are open for our November retreat, so anyone you meet can connect, ask any questions, and apply if they're interested for this transforming event. So I just spoke to someone, and I've been connecting with a lot of retreaters who were just at the retreat we just had, and some people were saying things like, well, I feel like for me there's going to be before the retreat and after the retreat now in my life as I move forward, which is significant. I think this is kind of what we try and achieve, and to be very honest, of course, the facilitators we have and the peers and the program is very efficient. I think over the years we really got to a good place with it, but ultimately I know for seeing it that it is through the connections that people made that their life was transformed and changed for the better, even though everything else can be so hard and challenging. Retreat Yourself Adventure. So this one is coming up in September, and it is a retreat that is for people a bit further out of their treatment. So we're talking about anyone diagnosed where treatment ended 1 year to 5 years. And we do connect with people. So some people connect with me and say, well, Karine, I'm actually kind of palliative, but I'm feeling awesome, and I'm just kind of being treated, and I won't be off treatment. Can I go? And then we talk with them. We talk with the medical team if needed. So we are flexible, but ultimately it is for people a bit further out and in good shape, because a retreat adventure is different than a traditional retreat. still has time and place to chat, but it's not so much long, small group discussions, but more physical challenges. So I think this event allows people to rediscover maybe what their body is able to do. The limitations they were told they had might actually be in a different place now. So we do some hiking. So this year, again, it's going to be in Newfoundland for the 3rd year, and we're actually going to have hikes. So we're going to hike out east of Newfoundland and then fly to the west part of the island and go to Grossmoor National Park to climb Grossmoor Mountain. So we've done it once with survivors, and it was extremely powerful to actually get on top of that mountain with people who dealt with cancer a year, 2 years, 3 years ago, and were there realizing what they are actually capable of doing despite everything they've went through. So it's a very awesome program. I think we're still taking applications for this one. It was full, but we always have a wait list for every program because, as you know, probably, life changes and situation changes, and so we keep spaces open for this program. And finally, our last face-to-face program is a survivor conference. So the retreats, just so you know before I forget, are usually events that people go once, and they don't come back to the retreat every year. But the annual reunion of young adults in Canada is the conference. So you can come back to the conference as often as you want. It is about making the rest of your life the best of your life, most definitely. This is a picture of our last conference that happened in Toronto in June. We had 93 participants, so 93 young adults and supporters. And between all of the speakers and facilitators and staff, there was 107 people at this conference, which was amazing. The conference is a bit more, definitely still about connection, definitely still about community, but it's also a lot about information, empowerment, skills, and tools. So we have workshops. We had 16 different workshops this year. We had 3 different keynote speakers. We also have like different sessions, yoga and different activities like that. We do a 7K for 7,000 young adults diagnosed every year, so 7K for 7K walk that we do together. And so the conference is this great event that I think allows for connection, but also allows for people to go back home feeling like they've learned something. The topics vary every year, so we've had topics around sexuality and intimacy. We had finances, anxiety and stress, meditation. What else? We had something for supporters only. So every year we build our program with health professionals and people with expertise across the country, and we bring everyone together. So we are actually in the middle of confirming our dates for 2015. Most probably going to be in Ontario again for this year, and we're going to start working on the program. So certainly one great way for young adults to stay connected. And so this is our face-to-face program, but we are expanding here at YACC because we have a lot of young adults who say they want to get involved, they want to give back, and we need to spread the word. So there is still a good portion of you guys out there who don't know that Young Adult Cancer Canada exists, who don't know the services we offer, and so we started to train survivors. So we have on the left with the little hat Becky, and on the right Heather. Heather is in Saskatchewan, and Becky is in Halifax in Nova Scotia. And those 2 great girls were trained, and they've become activists. So they actually go and talk to their communities about young adult and also about life. I would say they go in schools, and it's not all about cancer, but more like the cancer challenge, meaning life in general. Life can throw you some curveballs, and how do you deal with that, and how do you do that and change maybe the path of your life. So they do speak in schools, and so that helps as well raise the awareness of YACC. So how can the resources, how can you help? Well, for sure, we have here at YACC, we have pamphlets, contact cards. We're in the middle of actually redesigning our information pamphlets, but we can certainly send you information like that. Those little contact cards are business-size cards that I think are easy for nurses and social workers to carry in your pocket and actually be able to give to young adults so they can connect with us. refer to our website, like I was saying earlier, or use a referral sheet that is going to be made available on our site to send young adults to us, and we will take care of them. Offer to help young adults connect with their peers, so either by connecting with them with us, so we can do that, or yourself. If you know another patient who's been dealing with cancer and you are able to connect the two of them, believe me, you're going to change those person's lives, so you can do that. Repetition. So like I told you at the beginning, the Jamie story, I think we need to repeat a lot. Say to people, remind them to go check, to try out things, because they trust you. And so either you're a family member, you're a healthcare professional, a nurse, a social worker, they will trust that if you're encouraging them to do something, it's probably because it's going to help. So I think you have a lot of possibilities to actually help them get the support they need. And sometimes a lot of people will say, once they connect with the community, they will say, I didn't think I needed this until I got there. I was fine. I thought I was okay until I actually got to sit with people my age and people who actually got everything I went through without me having to explain anything. So I think that's significant and important for us to remember. I do think that humor works really well. I think it works well in life in general, but certainly works really well with this age group to laugh about things sometimes. Like, they make the best cancer jokes I've ever heard in my life, and it's coming from them. And so at the retreat, we laugh more than we cry. And so people were saying, oh my God, like I laughed more than I have in years. And that is just by putting a bunch of cancer survivors together. So I think us as people who provide support and help to them can also use humor to lighten the atmosphere and help them as well get their defenses down and trust that things are going to be okay. And use of social media and emails, which I mentioned earlier. So how does YACC survive? So very briefly, we are a nonprofit organization. We're national, but we're located in St. John's, Newfoundland. So we were founded in 2000 by Jeff Eaton, who's a two-time cancer survivor, and really we've been growing thanks to personal donations. Thanks to our Shape for the Brave events. So Shape for the Brave is the biggest fundraiser YACC offers, so that's kind of how we get a lot of our money, about 70%. The Newfoundland government has been a great supporter of YACC for the last couple of years, which is significant. It was the first government in the country to actually put young adults on their cancer plan, and that has been really significant for us. We have third-party events, we have major donors, and we also have support from professionals across the country. So all of you are going to help send young adults to us is going to make a difference and is going to help us help more people. So this is kind of the information I have for all of you today. We still have some time for questions, so I'm more than open and happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you so much, Karine. What a great presentation and a great reminder of all the resources and programs that YACC has. I'll just give everybody a minute or two to type their questions. We do have one that I'll ask in a moment as people type. But I just wanted to make a comment, Karine. I mean, the tip for everybody regarding just reminding people about YACC and organizations like us at Brain Tumor Foundation of Canada is so important for us smaller organizations, right? You know, we have limited staff across the country for your organization and our organization. And so when we do our in-service presentations to healthcare professionals and hospitals and cancer centers and other organizations, we always mention to the staff at those centers that we really rely on them to remind their patients and their survivors and their family members about these great organizations out there and how we can help them with support and information. And also just kudos to YACC, because we've been in contact with you guys for about 3-4 years now, and just to see the growth of your organization in the last 3-4 years is amazing. And so kudos to the staff and the volunteers and all the supporters. And your tagline, YACC's got your back, and the YACCtivists, brilliant, brilliant. So we have 2 questions that have come up. One is, where is the retreat in November, and is there any financial support from YACC to attend their events?
Yes, so that's a great question. That's awesome when people ask questions, because it's like, oh, I forgot to say that. So the next retreat is in Ontario, in a venue called Northumberland Heights. It's in Cobourg, Ontario. And the retreats are free. All our programs are free except for the conference that has a minimal fee. But the retreats are free, and all people have to do is get to the city where the event is taking place. But we do have travel assistance. So anyone, we never want money to be the reason someone doesn't come to an event. And so we always find solutions. So we definitely have travel assistance available for anyone who wants to come to a retreat with us.
Great, thank you. And the second question is, do you have French services?
If we have, I'm sorry?
French services? Any services?
So another great question. So at the moment, I'm the only bilingual person, but we have on our planning to offer bilingual services, and we know it's important, and as a national organization, it's our responsibility. So we're just in the planning of seeing how we can start making this possible. We don't want to start something that only has parts of it, so just have one article in French on the website and nothing else. So we have connections with amazing people in Quebec, actually, that are more than willing to help us develop that part. So it's definitely on our strategic plan to kind of start and do this. So we're hoping to do. But in the meantime, I would say anyone who speaks French only can connect with me at least, and I can provide the support and also connect them with other young adults I know who are bilingual across the country.
Great, thanks so much, Karine. That looks like that's it for questions. So before we sign off, and I'm just going to show a couple of slides to the audience before we finish up here. Just give me 1 second. All great questions, everybody. And if you have more, please send them along. So just before we wrap up, wanted to mention to everybody that we have some Information Day conferences coming up. So we have a Vancouver half day for those of you in Vancouver on September 20th. We have our full day London Information Conference on October 4th, which also kicks off our Awareness Month, which is October. And Calgary is October 18th. And then we also have a Halifax Information Day Conference on Saturday, November 1st. As well, for those of you who are healthcare professionals, we are launching a new London, a breakfast symposium here in London for healthcare professionals on Friday, October 4th, which is a free event and a half-day event. And we also have our annual Healthcare Professional Calgary Workshop, which is the day before the Calgary Information Day. We do have a limited space for this event. We have enough for 50, and we're already up to over 30. So if you're in the Calgary area and you'd like to attend, please register as soon as possible. And for those of you in the Halifax area, we normally have an annual Halifax Healthcare Professionals Workshop, which is the day before the Halifax Info Day. This year, to help us save a little bit of money, we are combining the two events. So all that information is up on our website as well. And also our next webinar is on September 17th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time with Dr. Gerald Lim, a radiation oncologist, and he'll be talking about meningiomas and radiosurgery. And it looks like there's no more questions, Karine. So once again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your schedule to be with us. I know it's been a long week as you've just flown from Vancouver to St. John's back home, so get some rest, and I'll let you know if there's any other questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you. Take care, everybody.
Bye.